The incredible and touching stories of women who overcame the Spanish Inquisition's horrors. Isabella's fingers trembled as she opened the weathered journal discovered within her grandmother's attic. Its pages whispered secrets of a woman who had stood up against oppression centuries ago. She'd thought the attic would hold relics of mere sentimentality, not a portal to a legacy that could cradle her ambitions. Each word sparked her admiration, igniting a desperate longing to channel this ancestral courage into her own struggles as both a single mother and an academic. Yet, in stark contrast, an aching weight settled on her heart, drumming into her chest the incessant sound of doubt. Living in a small New Mexico town, the world around her felt both picturesque and suffocating. The golden hues of the sunset spilling over the rugged mountains were a beautiful backdrop to a life burdened with bills and whispered disbelief. As she juggled her part-time job as a history professor and the needs of her spirited daughter Maria, whose dreams of college shimmered like a mirage, Isabella wrestled with shadows of uncertainty creeping closer. Was she enough? Would she ever embody the strength her ancestor had displayed? Before she could wrestle any further, a plain manila envelope landed in her mailbox that morning, its contents promising an opportunity crafted specifically for women in academia. The local grant shimmered like a beacon, reviving hope she had nearly let extinguish. But as she scanned the fine print, the creeping skepticism returned. A shadow of possible bias settled deep in her mind, reminding her of the belittling remarks from some of her colleagues. Were they right to doubt her capabilities? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. And just as despair sneaked in to claim her, Professor Martinez, a wise elder who had taught her in the early days, offered her unwavering support, nudging Isabella to weave her ancestor's story into her grant application. It felt like an electric spark coursing through her veins, igniting the fire within. Yet the journey was fraught with trepidation. Fear flickered in her stomach as she faced a colleague who belittled her research, questioning her commitment. Each word like a dagger thrown to chip away her confidence. During sleepless nights, Isabella confronted her insecurity head-on, pondering whether the strength of her ancestor could be reawakened within her. It was a battle of the spirit between honoring the sacrifices of the past and battling against present doubts that seemed so unreasonable yet felt inescapable. Just as she articulated her resolve in a conversation with Mariah, an email interruption sent a shiver down her spine. Potential link to family heritage, it read, weaving a thread of intrigue so compelling Isabella felt the ground shift beneath her. Torn between pursuing her ambitions in academia and uncovering shadowy facets of her ancestry, she stood at another crossroads. What secrets awaited her within the depths of her family's past, and how far would she go to discover them? Isabella's pulse quickened as she opened the email again, the words blurring momentarily as her fears lunged forward, demanding attention. A potential link to family heritage? Virtual threads to familial history pulled taut against her stomach, reminding her of the burden she yearned to shred. The delicate balance of ambition and ancestry suddenly loomed larger than existence in her small town, overshadowing her reality. The coffee she had prepared earlier now sat cold and forgotten. She paced the kitchen, considering the implications. Her rational mind cautioned her. How could delving into the past aid her present? But another voice insisted, knowledge was power, and perhaps the key to her future. Each step echoed the footsteps of those resilient women she had read about, inspiring her not merely with their stories of survival, but their proactive refusal to let injustice define them. Compelled to act, she reached for her laptop and began typing furiously. The grant application floated to the forefront of her mind, interlaced with the idea of preserving her family's legacy. There had to be a way to weave her ancestors' narrative, her struggles, her triumphs, into a world that deserved to hear them. Every sentence formed was like chiseling away the stone that encased her determination, revealing the academic tenacity she had always yearned to rediscover. With each keystroke, Isabella tilted her head back, allowing the memories of her childhood, her grandmother's resolute stories, to swirl around her. These women were not just historical subjects, they were champions of their destinies, she reminded herself. As doubt flirted with her resolve, she began to inscribe the essence of her discovery, the emotion, the grit, the ambition. How could her journey not be informed by those who walked before her? Hours flew by, and her surroundings faded into a soft haze as she poured her heart onto the virtual page. Midnight crept in, revealing a darkened sky, but it highlighted the spark of newfound clarity within her. The external pressures of bills and skepticism faded, replaced by an internal fire ignited by purpose. But just as she thought she had put pen to paper in a manner that honored her ancestor, uncertainty crept back. What would her colleagues think? Imagining their ridicule sent waves of frustration crashing through her focus. She shook her head, willing away the voices that belittled her worth. A flash of defiance surged within. "I refuse to shy away from the truth," she whispered to herself. "If I do this, I do it for me." Morning sunlight peeked through the kitchen window, illuminating a half-finished application. Despite the lingering fears, she submitted her work, fueled by a mixture of trepidation and exhilaration. The stakes had risen. She would confront the doubts head-on. It was no longer just about the grant. It was about something deeper, a journey to reclaim her identity while honoring the resilience of her lineage. But as the sun climbed higher, an unexpected knock on the door startled her. Curiosity mixed with a sharp pang of anxiety. Who could be visiting her unannounced? As she opened the door to reveal an unfamiliar face, a myriad of questions engulfed her. The stranger's expression held a promise of answers, a tangible connection to her ancestry she never anticipated. Would this new development push her further along the path she had just begun to tread? Or would it unravel the fabric of the life she had built? The moment of truth was at hand. The stranger stood before Isabella, framed by the morning light, a set of old photographs clutched in her hand. Isabella's eyes widened, searching the woman's face for any hint of familiarity. There was a softness about her features, but she was a total stranger. "Isabella?" the stranger asked, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. "Yes, that's me. Do I know you?" The woman hesitated, glancing down at the photographs. "I'm Clara. I believe I'm your great-aunt." Shock coursed through Isabella as she processed the weight of those words. A great-aunt she never knew existed? Her mind raced, rattling with images of family trees and lost connections. "Great-aunt?" she echoed, unsure if she should be wary or hopeful. "I understand this must be overwhelming," Clara said, stepping into the kitchen as if invited. "I have something to show you. Our family story, your story, has been hidden for far too long. I've been searching for you." As they settled at the kitchen table, a palpable energy filled the room. The photographs Clara revealed were worn yet vibrant, capturing faces that looked hauntingly familiar, women with strong features, just like Isabella's. "These are the women who shaped our lineage," Clara explained, her voice catching slightly. They face trials that I believe you're meant to learn from." Isabella leaned closer, mesmerized by the images. Each photo felt like a tether to the past, inviting her deeper into the narrative that had eluded her all these years. "What happened to them?" Isabella asked, eager to absorb every detail. Clara's expression turned serious. "They lived through struggles akin to yours and overcame tremendous odds. Perseverance, loss, and the fight for dignity during the darkest times." She paused, searching for the right words. "You have that same spirit, Isabella. You're already on that path by pursuing your grant." A wave of affirmation washed over Isabella. Clara's words felt like a balm for her insecurities, but they also ignited a deeper curiosity about who she was meant to become. "But how do I carry forward their legacy? I feel so unprepared." "You've taken the first critical step by connecting with your history. Look at your application. It's more than just a project. It's an homage." Clara smiled warmly, urging Isabella to recognize her potential. "No one else at work would appreciate it," Isabella murmured, doubt clawing its way back in. "Let them doubt." Clara's response was steady, a stark contrast to Isabella's internal chaos. "The world needs voices like yours, those that are unafraid to tell uncomfortable truths. Think about it. Every time you raise your voice, you honor your ancestors, infusing new life into their narratives." Isabella felt the weight of her family's history transforming into a call for action. Her heart raced at the thought of her application being more than a grant proposal. It was a vital bridge linking past to present, determination to destiny. An unsettling reality loomed, though. If she truly stepped into this light, she would have to confront her colleagues' skepticism head-on. "Now that you understand the legacy, you must decide how you'll wield it," Clara prompted, her eyes fierce with conviction. "Will you allow fear to close doors, or will you boldly walk through them?" A choice lay before Isabella, more than just a personal decision about her project. It was a defining moment for her identity. She needed to confront the duality of her ambition and her fears. As they delved deeper into the photographs and stories, a new sense of resolve began to take root within her. This was about embracing the truth of who she was while championing those who paved the way before her. But then Clara leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. "I have something else to tell you, something that might complicate things further." Isabella's heart thundered in her chest. What other secrets lay in the shadows of her lineage waiting to emerge? What additional burdens or triumphs were about to reshape her understanding of family? Indeed, the moment of truth had only just begun. Isabella's breath hitched as she stared into Clara's eyes, searching for a clue. The air thickened with anticipation, tension hanging like a blade about to drop. "What do you mean?" she urged, her voice a mix of eagerness and dread. Clara hesitated, grappling with her own emotions before she continued. "The legacy of our family is intertwined with more than mere survival. It's about resilience in the face of oppression. Some of the women in these photographs were marked by the Inquisition. Their stories hold secrets that may change your view of who you are." Isabella felt her pulse quicken. The Inquisition, a term she associated with dark historical narratives, abstract and distant, now suddenly felt personal. The implication that her lineage bore the weight of such trauma was staggering. It conjured images of persecution and fear, of women who had been silenced through the ages, yet still managed to endure. "What kind of secrets?" Isabella asked, leaning in, desperate to connect the fragments of history with her own identity. Clara glanced at the photographs, her expression a mixture of sorrow and pride. "One of your ancestors was a healer, a woman with remarkable gifts, deemed dangerous by those in power. She risked everything to save her community, yet she was betrayed. Her story was hidden, but I believe it's time to bring it back into the light. Why wasn't I told any of this before? Isabella felt a swell of indignation at the thought of her family's past being cloistered away. Who else knows? It's been a secret passed down through the generations, discouraged by fear of repetition. But your pursuit of truth and your voice can change that cycle. You have the chance to rewrite this narrative. Isabella's heart raced, emotion coursing through her veins. The tales of struggle and courage ignited something deep within her. The doubts she had about her application felt increasingly trivial when measured against a legacy steeped in such depth. Yet, alongside burgeoning determination, a wave of anxiety crashed over her. Could she really take on such a monumental task? "And if I do," Isabella questioned, caught in a maelstrom of hope and apprehension, "what if I fail?" "Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it," Clara replied, her tone steady. "Every effort you make, every risk you take is a testament to their legacy. You can breathe new life into their struggles. You can show that their voices matter." The weight of Clara's words resonated deeply within her. Isabella felt as if she were standing at the edge of a precipice, peering into the unknown. This moment could define her not just in her career, but in her very essence. "What if I'm not strong enough?" The question tore at her, a raw honesty surfacing in a way it rarely did. "You are. You carry their strength." Clara's gaze was earnest, unwavering. "You already possess a spirit of conviction. You just need to allow yourself to embrace it fully." With each moment that passed, Isabella's trepidation began to morph into purpose. The project didn't represent a simple grant application anymore. It was an embodiment of struggle, courage, and ancestral reclamation. The path ahead would be fraught with obstacles, starting with the skepticism at work, but this was about paving a way not just for herself, but for the lineage she had just begun to understand. Taking a deep breath, Isabella reevaluated her next steps. She needed to find a way to merge her ancestors' stories with her own voice. Armed with this newfound understanding, she envisioned how her work might shift perceptions and inspire respect for those women who dared to challenge the status quo. Just as determination solidified in her mind, Clara's expression shifted, betraying a complexity of thought. "There's one more secret. It's about your family's history with medicine, something you might want to think through before you move forward." Isabella's stomach churned. What more could there be to uncover? What else about her lineage was intertwined with notions of healing or power? The culmination of that question bloomed before her, as bewildering as it was exciting. The journey into discovery had barely begun, and already she could sense it could reshape everything she thought she knew about herself. Isabella's mind raced as Clara's words lingered in the air like a charged storm. A history woven with medicine and healing presented a new layer to her identity, one that could both empower and haunt her. How had she not perceived this pull before, this ancestral tug toward the art of healing? The weight of generations pressed against her chest, igniting a hunger for knowledge that thrummed in her veins. She stood there, processing what felt like an unveiling of shadows. The photographs Clara had shown her suddenly flooded her mind, faces framed with resilience, stories of healing hidden behind the veil of time. The thought gnawed at her. What else had been obscured? This was not merely academic. It was a quest for her essence, a way to connect to women who had lived in fear yet thrived in courage. "Clara, I need to know more." Isabella's voice was steadier now, fueled with newfound resolve. "If there's a history tied to the healing arts, I have to uncover it. This could shape everything." "Then begin to look for the stories, not just in history books, but within the artifacts of your family," Clara counseled, her tone shifting from confidant to mentor. "Visit archives, speak to the elders, unearth the narratives cataloged in whispers. The past is a town with many paths. Your journey has to lead you down one. With Clara's guidance echoing in her mind, Isabella spent evenings pacing around her small apartment. She crafted lists of resources, organized her approach, and prepared herself for the daunting task ahead. As each sleepless night unraveled a new layer of her family's history, the dread of skepticism began to transform into a formidable sense of purpose. The following day, she returned to her office, fortified by a sense of mission. But the remnants of doubt clung closely. The criticism she had faced previously echoed in her mind. What if her pursuit was seen as mere distraction? What if her colleagues dismissed her ideas as irrelevant? Determined, she steeled herself against the prospect of confrontation. At lunchtime, she sought out her boss, a woman known for her sharp disposition, but also for her insightful vision. Hattie was surrounded by the bustling energy of their shared workspace, but Isabella felt the electric hesitation between them. "Hattie," she began, feeling the tension in the air settle like dust. "I've been exploring a direction for my project that relates to my family history and the healing traditions of women through the Inquisition." Hattie regarded her for a moment, brow raised. "This sounds unconventional. How do you plan on integrating this into a framework we can actually use?" Isabella drew a deep breath, channeling Clara's words. "It's about resilience, about honoring those who went unacknowledged. Their narrative aligns with current discussions on marginalized voices in healthcare. I believe it could broaden our perspective and highlight historical impacts on present-day practices. I would like to propose a framework that intertwines personal lineage with cultural healing methods." For a heartbeat, silence filled the room, every eye in the vicinity drawn to this unexpected confrontation. Hattie did not blink, but instead leaned back as if weighing the merit of those words. The pause felt infinite, as if Isabella had cast a stone into deep water, waiting to see how far the ripples would reach. Finally, Hattie's lips curled slightly, skepticism softening into intrigue. "I can see the potential, but I want more specifics." A flicker of relief washed over Isabella. This was not outright rejection, but an opening. The need to push her visions forward suddenly clashed with the now familiar shadow of trepidation. She had finally breached the topic, yet now the real work began. As she returned to her desk, Isabella recognized a pivotal moment had arisen. She could either elevate this burgeoning narrative or allow it to slip back into obscurity. It was time to dive deeper into the stories of her ancestors, a depth that could enrich her work and, perhaps, define her in ways she'd only begun to envision. The thought pulsated in her mind. With every new discovery, what realities of her past would emerge? What unforeseen challenges awaited her as she pursued this path? Her heart raced. The moment felt transformative, yet the realization that the journey ahead might shake foundational aspects of her identity chilled her to the core. The richness of her family's legacy beckoned tantalizingly, yet its depths harbored unknown shadows. With a determined grip around her looming doubts, Isabella prepared to step into the world of her ancestors. What was there to discover in the echoes of their struggles? Isabella's fingertips hovered over her keyboard as she opened a blank document. The cursor blinked at her, a tiny heartbeat marking the beginning of her new quest. This was also her fear: how to bring forth the histories hidden within her bloodline without losing herself in the process. She needed to craft a narrative that honored these women while also resonating with her present work in healthcare. Determined to bridge the past with the present, she began her research. First stop, the local historical archives. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the window as Isabella entered, the scent of aged paper wrapping around her like a comforting shawl. Rows of files beckoned to her. She started to sift through what felt like centuries of documentation. With every letter, Every account, she could hear the muted whispers of her ancestors urging her on. Hours faded away as Isabella meticulously documented notes, stories of resilience, of healing passed down through generations, and the sacrifices made in the name of survival. Each fragment painted a vivid portrait of women who had navigated the treacherous waters of despair and discrimination only to emerge stronger, often as healers themselves. Yet the deeper she dove, the more she encountered unsettling truths. Difficult accounts of fear, betrayal, and persecution surfaced. Facing these harsh realities initiated an unsettling internal dialogue. Were these stories merely historical narratives, or did they mirror current disparities in healthcare systems? This question haunted her. By evening, she returned home, her mind a whirlwind of discoveries. The stories she had uncovered were richer and darker than she had anticipated. The duality struck her. These women wielded profound strength, yet their lives were marred by the brutality of their circumstances. How would she choose to present their stories? Would she focus on the healing or the suffering? The internal struggle was palpable as Isabella weighed her options. She poured herself a cup of tea, attempting to temper the turbulence within. As she sat down with Clara's notes, the old photographs scattered across her table seemed to come alive once more. They had been mere images before. Now they were touchstones leading her to some deeper understanding. Isabella needed connections. She decided to reach out to family members, older generations, who might still hold pieces of this narrative. The thought was nerve-wracking, but the desire to bridge gaps grew stronger than her hesitation. Who better to illuminate the shadows than those who had lived amidst them? After making a few phone calls, Isabella was surprised at the curator's response. Her grandmother agreed to meet, intrigued but slightly chiding. "Why didn't you ever take an interest before, Bella? This isn't just history, it's a part of who we are." Her grandmother's mild reprimand carried a weight that struck deep within Isabella. There was an expectation of connection, not just to the past, but to family legacy itself. As the days passed and the meeting drew nearer, so did Isabella's sense of urgency. She knew that the conversations would shape not only the framework of her project, but potentially redefine her own role within her family. She could either emerge from this process an enlightened scholar or remain entangled in her own insecurities. The night before their meeting, Isabella turned her focused energy inward. She wrote down questions that danced on the edge of formality yet dripped with intent. What did her grandmother remember about her own mother's practices? Did those memories align with the healing traditions recorded by historians? Would her grandmother disclose the parts most painful to recount? Each question felt like a stepping stone towards some significant revelation. As sleep eluded her, the unease wrestled with excitement. The time had come to delve deep into her lineage. Would her pursuit of truth illuminate new paths, or would it stir up familial tensions? With her heart pounding in anticipation, Isabella accepted the challenge awaiting her at their meeting. The echoes of her ancestors beckoned her forward, their lessons far from forgotten. What truths lay hidden within her grandmother's stories, and how would they alter her understanding of herself in the vast tapestry of healing? The unknown unfolded just ahead. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee as Isabella made her way to her breakfast. Grandmother's home, her heart thrumming with a mix of anticipation and dread. The sun glimmered through the trees, each ray striking a chord of hope while also casting shadows that mirrored her uncertainties. Once inside, Isabella was enveloped by familiarity. The wooden table laden with memories, family photos lining the walls, and the quiet wisdom radiating from her grandmother, who sat with an expectant smile. It felt surreal. The weight of ancestral expectations pressed down on her as she took a seat opposite her. Here was the woman who held threads of Isabella's history, a living repository of untold stories. "Breathe," her grandmother said softly, her tone encouraging. "There's no rush. We've all the time in the world." The words calmed Isabella momentarily, yet a tremor of anxiety surged through her. She had entered this meeting not merely as a granddaughter, but as an inquirer, a seeker of truth. What if the truths did not align with the narrative she wished to weave? Would her quest for understanding cause rifts in her family? With her notebook resting prominently in front of her, she steeled herself and spoke. "Grandma, I want to understand more about the women in our family, especially those who practiced healing. What do you remember?" Her grandmother's eyes sparked with a mixture of nostalgia and pain. "Healing was part of our survival, Bella. Your great-grandmother was feared for her knowledge. People came from afar for her remedies, her tinctures, her secrets." The simplicity of the words belied their depth. "What happened to her?" Isabella pressed, her pen poised, eagerness and trepidation battling within her. She faced suspicion, like many women did. They thought she was a witch because of her skills. Her grandmother's voice wavered, revealing a crack in the armor of her stoicism. It was dangerous to be a healer in those times, and some had to hide their practices. Each response crafted a tapestry of resilience, but also fear. Isabella's mind raced, considering how this narrative resonated with modern struggles within the healthcare system, the challenges women faced, the prejudice against alternative medicine. "Did she ever speak to you about her fears?" Isabella dared to ask, gauging the emotional weight of the conversation. A long pause filled the space, heavy with memories. "She did, but not directly. It was in the silence, her careful movements, her whispered curses when she thought no one heard. She knew what it was like to be hunted." Isabella's breath caught. The reality of her lineage was more complex than she had imagined. There was both pride in their knowledge and sorrow in their persecution. "Did she ever break her silence?" she inquired, feeling her foundation begin to shift. "Once, during a storm," her grandmother began, eyes distant, "when the rain lashed against the windows and shadows crept closer. She told me about a plant, one that could heal the deepest wounds, but would bring others pain if misused." Isabella's grip tightened on her pen. Secrets seemed to pulse beneath every shared story. The plant, a metaphor for their legacy, needed to be handled with care. She pondered the implications. Could her journey unveil similar patterns of healing and suffering today? Would these revelations facilitate a bridge that connected her present role in healthcare to the struggles of her past? The meeting stretched into hours of deep exchange, with Isabella scribbling fiercely, capturing raw stories, untamed wisdom. Yet, as her grandmother began to recount a particularly harrowing incident, a confrontation with an authority figure, a shift in the atmosphere changed the tone. There was a time when she had to decide between her safety and helping someone in need. Isabella leaned in, urgency blending with fear. What path had her ancestor chosen? Would this pivotal moment define the narrative she was destined to weave? Just as her grandmother was poised to reveal the critical choice, the sound of a door creaking open interrupted them, jolting Isabella from her thoughts. Had someone overheard their conversation? A figure stepped into view, a distant family member with their own version of history. The unasked questions languished in the air, thickening with tension as revelations hung just within reach, and Isabella found herself on the precipice of understanding. What threads of truth could unravel from this unexpected interruption? Would it bring clarity or confound the narrative she was desperate to construct? The next chapter of her quest loomed, tantalizingly out of reach. The figure in the doorway was an unexpected jolt, a living reminder of the lingering complexities within Isabella's family. As the person moved closer, she recognized a distant cousin, Elena, whose reputation in the family was a patchwork of whispered judgments and quiet respect. Was she here to disrupt or to assist? Isabella's heart raced as uncertainty collided with curiosity. "What are you two talking about?" Elena's voice was steady, almost playful, yet it held a sharp edge. There was an unmistakable tension, a veiled accusation that clung to the words. Isabella's grandmother quickly shifted in her chair, an instinctive move to shield her territory. "Just some family stories, dear. You know how it is." The evasiveness in her voice made Isabella's stomach knot. She sensed the deeper current flowing beneath their exchanges, and the instinct to protect their narratives felt almost instinctual among the women. Discernibly, the energy in the room amplified. Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of unveiling a collective story, but Elena's presence altered the course. "Stories are important," she replied, a hint of challenge in her tone. "But they can also trap us, can't they? Burden us with everyone else's fears." Isabella noticed the flicker in her gaze, a silent communication exchange between them. This was not merely a family discussion, it was an excavation of truths that could either liberate or ensnare them. "What do you mean?" she asked, intrigued yet cautious. "You might be uncovering hidden legacies," Elena replied, her expression shifting from amusement to seriousness. "But do you really think you know the whole story? The more you learn, the deeper the ties you might be binding yourself with." Isabella's immediate reaction was defensive. She had embarked on this journey to honor her ancestors and reconcile their struggles with her current work in healthcare. "I want to understand," she insisted, a hint of her own determination rising. "Isn't it important to connect the past with the present?" Elena crossed her arms. "It depends. Are you ready to confront the demons, the choices they made, the sacrifices?" The weight of the inquiry settled like a stone in Isabella's chest. Sacrifice? Was she prepared to face it? She had envisioned her quest as a means of healing, but wondered if those healing methods would mirror the complexities of what her ancestors faced. "They weren't just witches or healers, Isabella," Elena continued softly, her posture relaxing slightly. "They were rebellious, defiant. Do you have their strength?" Her words rang in Isabella's ears, echoing her doubts and fears. Could she embody that same audacity? The question reverberated within her throughout the day, lingering like the scent of coffee in the kitchen. With newfound resolve, Isabella turned back to her grandmother, whose expression had shifted from concern to pride. "Tell me more about her choice, the healer and the storm. What path did she forge?" The urgency in her voice was palpable. Her grandmother regarded her carefully, as if recalibrating the story she was about to impart. In choosing between her safety and another's healing, she faced the true nature of her gifts. It led her to an unthinkable decision. Elena leaned in closer, intrigued, yet Isabella sensed she too held on to her own narrative, ready to interject with stories of her lineage. Intrigued by the simultaneous tug toward the past and the revelation swimming in front of her, Isabella's heart surged. Was this the very crossroads her great-grandmother had faced? She hungered for the insights buried under layers of silence and shame. But would what she discover unveil strength or unravel the delicate fabric of her own dreams? The conversation morphed into a wild tangle of voices and emotions, and as she sat at the intersection of history and expectation, the path diverged into unknown territories. What risks would she need to take to uncover the truths tethered to her identity? Could she navigate through the shadows of history while forging her own story in the world of healing? The stakes were high, and Isabella realized she might need to confront not only the whispers of her ancestors, but also the generational fears tied to their legacy. And with that realization, she felt a burgeoning determination. There was no turning back. Only the promise of deeper understanding awaited her. Yet, the lingering unease in the atmosphere suggested this journey would be fraught with unexpected challenges. What deeper secrets lay in the shadows? A truth waiting to be unearthed that might change everything she presumed to know. The room pulsed with unspoken words, each member caught in a web of their own making. Focus sharpened, the air thickening around her. She felt a surge of rebellion igniting within her, a flicker of her ancestors' defiance. "I can handle the truth," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil roiling inside. Elena's brow raised, a challenge echoing back at her. Can you? Or are you only seeking validation? When the stories unfold, they might shatter the illusions you're clinging to. Determination mingled with trepidation as Isabella contemplated Elena's words. Each revelation might bring clarity, yet it could also deepen the fissures in her already precarious existence. The thought of unraveling dark family legacies was more daunting than she had anticipated. Yet the urge to face them clawed at her resolve. "Tell me about her decision." Isabella's tone was commanding now, the hesitation in her voice replaced by a persistent need to know. Her grandmother took a deep breath, eyes growing distant as if she were peering into a blurred photograph of the past. "She saved lives, but risked everything, Isabella. In doing so, she forged a path that marked generations." The tension in the room crackled, lifting Isabella's heart with a wild curiosity. What had her great-grandmother faced? What sacrifices had she endured? The compulsion to meet the shadows of her lineage strengthened her resolve, drawing her toward an inevitable confrontation with truths long buried. Elena regarded Isabella with a new intensity. Sacrifice can illuminate the extremes of our capacity for good, but it can also expose our vulnerabilities. The weight of those words clung to Isabella's consciousness. She envisioned her own career in healthcare, the choices she made each day. They all seemed intertwined with a legacy of strength, yet marred by doubt. Was she prepared to take that leap? Subconsciously, she felt the silhouette of her family's past towering over her, waiting for her to yield. "What if confronted with choices that could alter my path forever?" Isabella mused aloud, half to herself. "What if I discover that the truth leads to anguish rather than empowerment?" Elena leaned forward, a flicker of sympathy in her eyes. "Then you must be ready to redefine what power means for you. It's not an absence of fear, but a choice to push through it that defines you." Something ignited within Isabella, a stark awareness of her own tenacity and capability brewing beneath the surface. Her thoughts began to crystallize. Wasn't this her opportunity to reshape her narrative as she learned from those who came before her? She could emerge stronger amid the shadows, crafting a fusion of their legacies with a new horizon of her own. "Tomorrow," Isabella's voice thrummed with certainty, "I will dedicate myself to understanding who she was, what decisions she faced. I'll dive deeper into our history, into her pain and rebellion, until I emerge with not only knowledge, but empowered purpose." Elena's expression softened, a spark of respect igniting in her eyes. "Then be prepared for resistance, both from within and outside. The truth can be treacherous." As the conversation drifted into layers of shared memories, Isabella's thoughts spiraled. Courage was not simply about the absence of fear. It was an open door to the unknown, the unexpected twists leading into her future. And with the turn of tomorrow promising new journeys, Isabella realized she would not only face her ancestors' truths, but also the ghosts of her own insecurities. The question rested in her gut like a gathering storm. Could she bring forth a legacy of strength amidst the fear? As shadows danced around her, she felt something shift, a resolve hardening within. The dawn of discovery approached, but would she be ready to embrace the chaos of these revelations? Would she find the courage to confront the lurking doubts threaded through her lineage alongside the uncanny challenges that would inevitably present themselves? The answers were waiting, if only she dared to pursue them. With each heartbeat, she felt the stakes rising, setting the stage for the next phase of her journey. What haunting revelations would come rushing forth in the morning light? As dawn broke the following day, the sunlight spilled through the curtains, illuminating a resolute Isabella. The night's revelation still coursed through her veins, igniting an insatiable curiosity about her lineage and a newfound determination to step into a legacy that demanded reclamation. She understood now that this journey was not merely an academic pursuit, but a profound connection to her identity and her ancestors' untold stories. Determined to unravel her great-grandmother's past, Isabella mapped out a plan. The archives would remain her starting point, but she knew the journey would require more than just dusty documents. Inspired by Clara's guidance, she penned emails to local historians and began searching for community elders who might possess knowledge of their lineage. By intertwining her research in history with personal narratives, she was setting the stage for something extraordinary. As she delved deeper into the archives, Isabella's heart thrummed with a mixture of apprehension and excitement. Each piece of evidence she unearthed painted a vivid portrait. She learned about herbal remedies that had been passed down, a specific tincture believed to heal the body and spirit alike. Her great-grandmother's legacy was not just one of survival, it was ripe with purpose, conjuring the image of a woman who defied societal bounds and found healing within the tumultuous histories surrounding her. Days rolled into weeks, bursting with newfound knowledge and purpose. Conversations with her grandmother evolved into shared explorations of their family history. They exchanged stories that were once silenced, creating a powerful tapestry of resilience and identity. Together, they discovered how healing practices were shaped not just by traditions, but by acts of defiance against oppression. As Isabella forged ahead, her project was beginning to bloom. She embraced the uncomfortable truths of her family's past, allowing their stories of grief and courage to illuminate the path for her own healing work in healthcare. She transformed her academic grant proposal into a living tribute, merging personal lineage with revolutionary cultural practices. Finally, the day came for her presentation. Isabella stood before a panel of reviewers, her heart steadying in her chest. She began to share the narratives she had woven, a dual homage to her great-grandmother and a stark reflection on modern healthcare injustices. Her voice resonated through the room, empowered by the ancestors she had come to honor. Silence hung in the air, punctuated only by the weight of her truths. "Oh, how enlightening!" one of the reviewers remarked, leaning forward, captivated. "There's an organic connection here, a contemporary analysis of healing practices anchored in rich historical contexts. Very bold." Isabella's heart swelled with pride. Skepticism and fear had nearly silenced her voice, but now it sang with clarity. Each nod from the panel carried validation, affirming her journey and solidifying her commitment to bridging ancestral wisdom with current practices. In that pivotal moment, she realized that her transformation extended beyond academia. Yes, she had delved into the shadows of her lineage, but she was also crafting a narrative of hope and change, shaking off the chains of self-doubt that had once burdened her life. She achieved recognition not just as a scholar, but as a courageous woman embracing her legacy. When the panel concluded, they announced her grant funding. Isabella had conquered skepticism and turned it into a foundation for advocacy, one rooted in her family's enduring strength. Her research would contribute to a larger discussion on historical impacts on modern healthcare practices, amplifying the voices of women who had always been there but remained overlooked. As Isabella left the university that day, a rush of accomplishment washed over her, a satiating blend of relief and fulfillment. No longer was she merely a professor confined by the expectations of others. She emerged as a vessel of change, infused with the timeless stories of the women who came before her. Her journey had transformed from chronicling history to actively crafting a legacy of her own. She felt solid confidence in her abilities, recognized competence in her research, and an established position as a voice for marginalized histories. That evening, Isabella sat surrounded by her family, sharing stories, laughter, and her vision for the future, all the while feeling her ancestors' presence beside her. The burden of her past was now a source of strength, propelling her into a world where she would continue to honor her lineage while paving new paths toward healing. The moment of truth had culminated in self-discovery. Isabella had not only bridged her family's history with enduring practice, she had woven herself into a resilient tapestry, standing proud among the luminous legacies. Now it's your moment to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this inspiring ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to show your support now for all the true fans of personal overcoming stories. Don't wait even one more second to help this community grow.